Welcome to Alasquatch, the show all about Bigfoot in the great state of Alaska. I'm your host, Beans Baxter. So lace up your boots, zip up your coat, and come with me on an adventure as we explore all things cryptid in the last frontier. Oh, hey there. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays, whatever your reason for the season may be. I am back. It is I, your host of Alasquatch podcast, Beans Baxter. And here we are. And man, I sound really good. I took advantage of some Black Friday sales, and I bought some new headphones for my little podcast studio. And my old ones I've had since, 2007, 8. And they finally just, the left earphone or headphone, whatever it is, just stopped working. And every once in a while, I would turn my head a certain way and it would work for like a split second. And I tried a different wire. They're wired headphones, and it didn't work. So I assume it's probably just some internal wiring thing with the headphones. So I just broke down and bought some new ones. And this is the first time in probably a year that I've recorded and been able to hear myself in both ears. And the first thing I noticed is I can hear a lot of stuff. I can hear the fan on the laptop. I had some digestion noises a while ago. I'd just eaten, and I was like, "What is that coming from me?" So now I'm curious. I'm paranoid. I'm like, is that recorded all the time, and I'm just now hearing it because I've got new headphones, or is it just something that is coming through because I have new headphones and it's not going to show up in the actual recording? It's a little weird, but hopefully this, I'm going to try and get this out before Christmas, maybe on Christmas Eve, maybe a little sooner. Give you a little something to listen to while you're hanging your mistletoe and cooking your Christmas dinner and maybe wrapping a couple of gifts. Not going to get too deep in the weeds. I just want to talk a little bit about my video series on my trip to Washington. I want to talk about the last couple of episodes. Well, they're not the last couple of episodes. The last episodes that dropped. And just kind of talk about some stuff that didn't quite make it into the videos. It's funny because I go on these trips and basically my reason for it, other than the obvious of looking for Bigfoot, is to generate content. I want to record things. I want to document things. And it's so funny how, especially as time goes on, as you're out in the field longer and longer, you kind of stop recording things. You're like, I'm not going to get that right. I'll wait. That's not that big of a deal. Or you'll record something. You're like, oh, this might be a good segment. And then you won't record the second part of it. Oh, we're going to go over here and do this. And then you don't record going over there and doing it. You talk about it, but you don't record it. Or you're busy. Because a lot of times what would happen is I would be like, oh, we're going to go over here and we're going to do this. And then we would go over there and I would do it. And Marshall would record me on his camera, but then I wouldn't have it on my camera. So I'm like, well, Marshall has that footage. I don't have it. And to be fair, he did reach out and ask, hey, is there any footage you guys want that I have? And honestly, at that point, a few weeks after the trip, I'm like, I can't remember what we did and what we didn't. There was a few things that really stood out to me, but other than that, I was like, I don't remember anything. I think I have everything I need. But, and I ended up, I thought I generated some decent videos. I thought there was some pretty cool content. And you can watch all those. I believe there's 7 of them up right now on the Alasquatch YouTube channel. If you head over to YouTube, type in Alasquatch, go over to my channel and like and subscribe. I need some subscribers. I'm climbing up that hill towards monetization. It's kind of frustrating because I don't want to I'm not going to complain. It's a Christmas podcast. I should be thankful for what I have. But I will say it's a little frustrating seeing other channels that are not as old. I mean, I've been around for like 3 years or something now. And I see channels that just kind of pop up and they get, tens of thousands of subscribers, and they don't have as many videos as I do, and a lot of their content is very similar to mine. And it gets frustrating. I mean, I wish them all the success in the world as long as they're honest and they have integrity. But it does get a little frustrating. I think a lot of my problem is, and I'm only going to touch on this for a minute. I promise I'll stop bitching. A lot of my problem is I stay away. I don't have a lot of guests. I don't have a lot of stories. I stay away from a lot of the creepy story stuff. And that's what people want to hear. They want stories. Like, they want to be scared. They want to hear the creepy Bigfoot stories. They want basically creepypasta. And I feel like that's what a lot of these podcasts are anymore, especially ones with like member section or Patreon sections. It's just kind of like a subscription creepypasta service. There's not really any vetting of the story or the guest, and it's a safe place, and you can come on and talk about anything you want, and nobody's gonna question it whatsoever. And don't get me wrong, in some ways I'm like, yeah, I get it, I understand, I can see why that would be important to have, because there's a lot of stuff. I'm not saying that these encounters, especially, a lot of times truth is stranger than fiction, and a lot of these encounters that people talk about that just seem like just crazy stuff are the ones that you're like, that I'm like, that's probably true, because it's so insane. Like, it's so crazy. It makes no sense. It's probably the true one. And then, the guy that's like, oh, I had Bigfoot run across the road in front of me and, in Florida or something, or whatever. That's probably more made up than the guy that saw Bigfoot getting into a UFO. I mean, who knows? And say I'm getting on a tangent. I said I wasn't going to do it. It's probably because I've got a little, ladies and gentlemen, I have a little Christmas cheer here in my bottle, here on my desk. It's the holidays, and I'm not working today, so I thought, I had some pizza for lunch, and I thought, what goes really well with pizza is beer, and here we are. So don't judge me. It's the holidays. But yeah, I have a little problem with some of the stuff that's out there now. But God bless the people that are out there putting it out. Somebody needs to. I think probably, honestly, I think I've said this before, maybe in one of the videos that Marshall and I did. I don't think that the mystery of Bigfoot's ever going to be solved in my lifetime. But I do think if we ever do get answers, or when we do get answers, I think it's going to be probably stranger than people realize. I'm not going over to the woo yet. It seems like a lot of researchers that have been in this for a while, some even not as long as I have, it seems like they get to a point where they're just like, well, I haven't seen one, so they must be, magic, aliens, interdimensional, whatever. And it goes, and you know what? It goes the other way too. On the other side of it, you get the researchers that go out there and do a lot of research and look, and they don't have a sighting, and they go, well, they're just must only, they must be almost extinct. There's only, a few left. And, you get this weird dichotomy where, you get frustrated researchers that say, well, I haven't seen one and I've been doing this for X amount of years, so they must be magic, or, there's, it's unexplainable. And then you get the ones that are like, well, I've been doing this X amount of years. I haven't had a sighting. So they must not be any, or there must be very, very few. And I can see both sides of that argument. Um, but I'm not on either side of that yet. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Who knows? I've certainly had my share of weird things that have happened to me, and I'm just not quite at that level yet to where I'm ready to say that it's magic or interdimensional or this or that. But I'm not ready to say that stuff's not around either. I think it's important to consider that we live in a universe of infinite possibilities. The key, I think, to that phrase is, even though there are infinite possibilities, some of them are very, 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 very unlikely. So anything is possible, but not everything is probable, I guess, is kind of how I look at things. And I think that's enough of that. Haven't I complained enough? Let's talk about some things that happened on my trip that I didn't really get to include in the videos. And I wanted to tell this story because it's pretty funny. It's kind of funny, and at the same time, I did actually get a little footage of this, and I remember, like, this is one of those segments where I was like, oh, this is what happened, and this is what we did. And then afterwards, and I got home, and I'm like putting my video together, I'm like, oh, I recorded, like, Marshall recorded that on his camera, and I don't have it. So the little bit of footage that I have really doesn't make any sense. So I figured, well, I'll save it for the behind the scenes stuff. We'll talk about it on the podcast. I'll tell the story. And what had happened is I believe it was the day that Marshall had left. He ran back home to unload his memory cards, and he came back, and it wasn't dark, but it was starting, the sun was starting to go down. It was kind of twilight. You could still see pretty good, but it definitely wasn't sunny. And we had just fixed some dinner. I don't even remember what we had. I think Marshall fixed something. He's such a great camp cook. He takes such good care of us when we're out there. But Marshall, I think we just sat down and had something to eat. And we were getting up, and we were kind of moving around after our meal and kind of cleaning up and stuff. And Marshall was standing in front of me, and I was facing him, and I was looking. I saw movement like behind him, like over his shoulder, like way on the road. So there's like a vault toilet sitting at the end, I don't know, like 30, 40 yards away from our campsite. And there's like an intersection right there where the vault toilet is. You take a left turn off I call it the main road. It's not a paved road. It's very remote. But you take a left off the main road, come down, and that's basically the driveway or the entrance to the campground. And the vault toilet is right there. Well, I'm looking over Marshall's shoulder as I'm talking to him, and I see movement behind him, like past the vault toilet. So, 40 yards away or so. And it's just this, it's a tan. So first off, it wasn't Bigfoot. I knew it wasn't Bigfoot. Let me put it out there. But I saw this tan, hairy form, like a shoulder, and it's as close to the ground. So it's not a bear. It's not a person. And I saw like a shoulder and a front quarter of this animal as it moved toward the vault toilet, kind of like behind the vault toilet. I had just seen it through this little like opening in the foliage behind me, or behind Marshall. And the first thing that went through my mind is, holy crap, It's a mountain lion because it was the same. It was kind of like that tannish color, that tannish yellow color, and it was low to the ground. It looked like it was stalking. You know, I saw like a shoulder, and it was moving slow, and it was kind of moving behind the vault toilet. And I told Marshall, I said, Marshall, there's a freaking mountain lion behind the bathroom. And I'm like, get your camera. And I think I've said it here before. I am not a mountain lion guy. I've never lived in a state that had mountain lions. And in fact, the first time that we were in Washington, in that area, in fact, not far from there at all, looking around, we found some mountain lion tracks. And I kind of had this like realization come over me. I was like, oh, I don't know anything about mountain lions. Like, I don't know how to handle mountain lions. Bears I can deal with, moose I can deal with. I know things to look out for to indicate their behavior. If they're irritated, if they're docile, if they're not, okay, that moose isn't paying attention to me, I can go on about my business. I can tell. Mountain lions, no idea. Clean slate, no idea what's going on. I know they're scary as heck because they're big and they're predatory. So I see this thing slink behind the vault toilet building. And I don't know, I'm thinking, okay, is it trying to sneak up on us? I mean, we did just have some food out. Is it trying to ambush us? Or is it just passing through and I just happen to see it, which I understand is like, doesn't happen almost never. Like, I'd probably have a better chance of getting struck by lightning or seeing a Sasquatch than I would seeing a mountain lion. In fact, I think after this incident, Marshall said something along the lines of like, if you see a mountain lion, it's only because they want you to see it or something like that. So anyway, I don't know what to do. But I'm like, okay, well, obviously, like, this is not good. We don't want this big cat hanging around our campsite. So I feel like I've got to do something. And number one, I really want to get this thing on film if I can, because it would be super cool to get footage of a mountain lion. So I tell Marshall, I'm like, get your camera and follow me. I'm going to walk up here and I'm going to try and film too, but I'm also going to have my hand on my gun and I'm going to try and see if we can get footage on it. So I'm thinking we're gonna turn the tables here and we're gonna ambush the mountain lion before he can ambush us, or we're gonna scare him away. So, and plus I know cats are less likely to attack if you're facing them. If they can see your eyes, they're less likely to get you. So I'm like, well, let's go investigate this, see if we can get this cat out of here, or eliminate this threat before it gets us. I don't even know what the rules are for defense of life and property against mountain lions in Washington. But if it had came at me, I would have. I mean, obviously, I would have defended myself. So, and hopefully not have gotten into trouble before, but who knows anymore. So I start creeping up toward the vault toilet, and I'm trying to be quiet, and I've got my camera going. And I'm creeping up there and walking really quiet. And I'm like, I'm wondering, like, okay, well, what if it hears me coming and it starts going around the toilet on the other side, basically where we're going, it's one step ahead of me, and I'm peeking around the corner while it's coming around the other corner behind me. So all these scenarios are going through my head, and I'm like, well, more than likely, I'm just going to go, go away, cat, and it's going to run. So that's what's in my head. I'm walking up toward the toilet, and then out from around the building where the vault toilet is, this huge dog comes running around the corner, and then another dog comes behind it, and they see me, and they kind of freak out, and they run off. And the dog that I saw was the exact color. It was like some kind of mastiff, and it was kind of a light yellow color. It was almost the same color as a mountain lion. And I actually did get footage of the dog. And as soon as they ran off, I stopped recording. I was like, oh, it's a dog. I turned around and told Marshall, I was like, that's a dog. But if you had just seen, like I just saw the shoulder of the dog that was colored like the mountain lion. If I'd have seen the other dog, I might have thought maybe, oh, it's a dog or a wolf or something like that. I probably wouldn't have thought domestic dog right away because we were pretty far away from any houses. And yeah, it was it was funny after the fact, but it was one of those stories where you're like, ooh, man, this is like this could be bad. This cat seems like it's stalking us here. It's like I saw it like sneaking around. So what's it trying to do? Is it trying to pass through, or is it trying to sneak up on us? And yeah, it just ended up being a big tan colored dog. And it was one of those moments too where you're just like, whew, like, oh, I'm glad it was just a stupid dog. But yeah, those two dogs were running around, and I think they had collars on, if I remember correctly. But I felt bad for them, but they were pretty skittish. Like they didn't. It seemed like they didn't even like entertain coming to me. They saw me and they turned around and they ran off. So they were pretty skittish. I don't know, maybe if they had escaped from a house nearby, or if they were maybe just feral at that point. I don't know. But yeah, it was one of those moments that got my blood pressure up and got me worried. Like, what's going to happen next? Am I going to have to shoot this thing, or am I just going to be able to scare it away? And more than likely, they probably smelled the food that Marshall and I had, and they just came to investigate. But that was a moment that didn't quite make it into the video series that I kind of wish had, because it was pretty humorous, but it was pretty nerve wracking at the beginning. Maybe Marshall might have some footage of that he's going to integrate into one of his videos someday. I wanted to take the footage I got of the dog and like crop it so you could just see what I saw, basically the shoulder, and then be like, see, that's that's what I saw. You can see why I thought it was a cat. But anyway, later that evening, Will shows up, and we kind of help him get situated and kind of make some plans for the next day. And the next day was pretty cool. What we did was we took him over to the other side of the lake and showed him that weird like nest / like sniper hide looking thing that we found, that cave almost. And it was kind of funny because we get there, and the bone that I had pulled out of there, it was back inside, and something had pulled it back into the little cave. And of course, Marshall and I were like, I don't remember. And then there were some like fresh green leaves like on top of the brush pile that was blocking the entrance. And Will was like, were these here when you guys were here? And me and Marshall were like, I don't think so. I don't remember. And of course, they obviously, like, we had to go back and look at the footage, but they obviously weren't. And the bone had been moved back in. So that was kind of weird. And so Will, he gets down and he's getting in there, and I was a little leery about like sticking body parts in there. And he's looking, and then he like pulls it. He's like, you got a thermal or something, or what was he asking? Oh, a flashlight. So I gave him a flashlight, and then he like digs around, he pulls his thermal out, and he's like looking in the hole, and he's like, oh, there's a pack rat in there. So we kind of came to the consensus that it was just a pack rat nest, but holy cow, it was huge, like really big. Like literally, I could have crawled in there if I wanted to and laid down. It was so big. But yeah, it was one of those things where, Marshall and I were like, well, I've never seen anything like this before. And honestly, I think the only pack rat nests that I've ever seen were like in like old, like abandoned buildings, or, like an old barn or something, or in an old vehicle that had been, left to set. And I had never seen one out in the wild like that was like built into almost like a natural cave. That pack rat has a very uh, styling cave. I mean, he must be living. He in pack rat terms, he's living in a deluxe apartment in the sky. I mean, he is the the Howard Hughes of pack rats. Apparently, he has a very palatial spread. There's a lot of room for pack rat parties or whatever they do. But yeah, it was just this huge. I mean, you have to go to the video and take a look. And honestly, the video doesn't even do it justice because there's not a good sense of scale. But it's just basically a big cave. Well, it's not big, but it's big enough for me, my fat ass, to slide into. And neither Marshall or I had ever really seen anything about like it. And there was like all these woven sticks, not really woven, but nest, like a nest, like a bird's nest. And in fact, at one point I was like, well, maybe this is some kind of like predatory bird nest, like an albatross or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of weird, but I'm glad that Will was able to, see that little pack rat in there and kind of like, okay, well, this is probably a pack rat nest. And all the little twigs and stuff, I got to looking at them and they were all kind of like pointed at the end, like they had been chewed, like gnawed on like a rodent. And, all signs kind of pointed toward that. And then of course, Will had the little pack rat sightings. So, I mean, it would be really cool and fun to say that it was a Bigfoot hide or blind or nest or something. But I think, we have to go with logic here and just say it was probably a giant pack rat nest, which is kind of weird when you think about it too. Like I said, like it was big enough for me, a 200 plus pound man to crawl into. So yeah, even though it wasn't Bigfoot, it was still kind of damn weird. So after that, maybe I can't remember which one we did first. I'd have to go back and watch the video, I think. But either before or after that, Marshall and I, we gave Will a radio, a two-way radio, and Marshall and I walked around to where Will had his bedhead Bigfoot sighting, and I'm briefly gonna go over that. He had pulled into the same camping area where we were at, where we were currently camping. And this was a few years ago. And he's got a video, maybe even a couple of videos on it, on his YouTube channel, Grassman58, Bigfoot of Stevens County. And I believe Marshall has a video about it as well. He might even be talking, there might even be a video on my channel where he talks about it. Anyway, moving on. He pulled in. He was going to camp. He gets out of his vehicle. He hears he's like taking a leak, facing one way. He hears a knock kind of in front of him, and then he hears a knock behind him from the other side of the lake. He turns around and he sees something. There's a big rock across the lake, and he sees something like a head and shoulders like ducked down behind this rock. And he said he only saw it for just a split second, he said, but it gave him the impression that it had like, he called it bedhead. You know how like when you wake up, you've been like snoozing really hard, you wake up from a really good nap and your hair is all like askew and messed up. And he said it looked like it gave him that impression, like it had bedhead. And he said it ducked down behind the rock, and then he started hearing like it was coming towards him around the lake. And he heard like squirrels start, like a squirrel would bark. Then, a few meters or feet down the tree line, another squirrel bark, and then another squirrel bark, basically it was coming toward him. And it just freaked him out, like holy shit, something's coming to get me. And he jumps in the car and he takes off. And so Marshall and I trekked over there to where this rock was. And we actually did it before Will got there and looked around a little bit. And the whole area is just kind of honeycombed with trails. There's all kinds of trails back in there. Deer and other animals. In fact, we saw a deer, I think, the first day we went out there when we were walking back. And so there's all kinds of trails all through there. There's a really worn path, like behind those rocks. There's like a couple of rocks setting together, and it just almost looks like a groomed trail where, so much traffic goes through. It's beat down that well, and almost like a little highway. So we went back there, we got some measurements, we took some video, and then when Will showed up, that's when we had the bright idea, or I had the bright idea. I was like, let's do recreation like they do on Finding Bigfoot and other stuff. And I think this is my first like recreation, like of a sighting or a visual. So Marshall and I walked back over there. We used the radios, and Will kind of gets me in position. I stand in this area. I'm like, is this where it was? Yeah, that's where it was. And I decided, we're going to do like a little recreation. Of course, it's not 100% the same because, like I said, this was a few years ago. There's a little bit more vegetation over there now, so it wasn't like a 1-to-1 recreation. There was a few variables in play. The vegetation being one, and I kind of ducked down, tried to recreate what he saw, and he kept saying over the radio, he's like, "Man, you guys are small." And at one point, I took my hat off and I kind of waved it up in the air, and he's like, "Yeah, I see you. I can see you, but you're small." So we went back over there to where he was at, and he was like, "Dude, I can't believe like how big that was." Because I'm a big guy. I'm almost 300 pounds, 6 foot. Like 5'11". I was actually 6 foot, I think, when I joined the military, and by the time I got out, I was 5'11". I went through a lot of cartilage in the military, but yeah. So I'm not a little guy, and he said that when I took my hat off and I was waving it, up in the air, he said that's about where the head was. Well, I'm 6 foot, and I had my hat, I was holding it up over my head. Well, that's another 2 foot probably. So whatever he saw was about 8 foot tall. And, kind of realizing that kind of gave me goosebumps, because I'm like, man, I was just over there. I was over there where that thing was. Was there one of those things over there where I was? And when I was there, and I just didn't see it. And then of course, Will, he had goosebumps too, and it kind of creeped us all out. And we were leaving to a new spot later that day, and I'm kind of glad we did, because I was like, man, I don't. That's kind of scary. But I'd stayed there by myself the first night, so that was another thing that was kind of comical. I didn't realize this, but because I wanted to go back there because I got scared when we filmed Bigfoot Encounters in the Pacific Northwest. I wanted to go back there and kind of like face my fear, and I didn't realize that the reason Will was going out there to camp when he had the bedhead sighting was basically to face his fear, because he got scared back out there a different time. So Marshall was telling me that when I think we were actually walking back, maybe after doing the recreation. Yeah. And Marshall was telling me that on the way back, and I was like, oh yeah, well, I stayed out here by myself, Monday night. I faced my fear, not like Will. And I got to give him a little guff. I was doing my macho man, impersonation. And, I think Marshall actually included it in the video, the documentary. There's something out there. It's available on YouTube on the Selkirk Range, Sasquatch YouTube channel. But, yeah, that's why I was goofing off. That's why I was so like, ha ha ha. I was feeling kind of ha ha ha. I did it and you didn't. Kind of, like nana and a boo boo, because I stayed out here by myself and you didn't. That was why I was so elated and giving Will a little guff there with the Macho Man impersonation. But yeah, we left. We went to a new area, one that I'd never been to before. It was kind of recommended by Aaron West, and there was a couple of different guys met us. Where Aaron was there, Nathaniel Bronis, Bill Bassan came out for the first night. And we had we got there and like it's dark. Like when we got there, it was already dark, and I I had I had to park my car facing the wood line and like I've got these light bars. I've got a light bar in my grill, and I had to turn the light bar on so I could see to put my tent up. And I just got that vehicle with the light bars, and I was like, thank God I got these light bars, because I don't know if I'd be able to put my tent up without them. It's one of those moments where, have you ever bought something and you're like, I don't know if I need this. This is a little bit, seems like a little bit of a excessive expenditure maybe. And then you need it almost right away. You use it, and then you're like, this was worth every penny. So I had one of those moments with the light bar on my car. And it was really dark there. Like the woods were just so dark and kind of ominous. And it was like, even during the day, if you walked back into the wood line where our tents and stuff were, it was so like dark, and there's no light coming through the trees. The canopy was so thick, and we're up like kind of on a mountain. There's a few lakes around us, and I want to say that first night, I don't think anything really happened. I'm trying to remember. It's all kind of running together. And I didn't do, that first night, I did not do much, if any, really filming. I think I filmed maybe my tent after I got it up. And I don't think I really filmed anything else, just because, one, it was so dark. And two, I was exhausted, because we'd already done all that stuff from the previous day, where we went and looked at the cave, and then we did the recreation, and then we drove to the new spot, and we put the tent up, and it was a lot of stuff crammed in one day. So the next day we get up, and I think it was I can't remember which day it was, but Will had said that there had been some noises in the camp after everybody went to bed. And I don't remember if I heard them or not, because I think in one of the videos that Will's already posted, or Marshall posted, Will was like, everybody heard it. And now I'm like, did I hear it? I don't remember. I didn't put it in my notes, but that doesn't mean I didn't hear it. So we went and we checked. Aaron has a long-term audio recorder set up, and this is let me use this as an example of what not to do when you go squatching. What had happened was, is Aaron was like, hey, we're going to go up here and we're going to check this. I'm going to switch out my card and my recorder. And then he said something about and then we'll come back to camp. And then if you guys want, we'll go look in this riverbed, this dry riverbed, for tracks. And what I heard was, we're going to go do the maintenance on the recorder. We're going to come back to the campsite, and then we're going to go to this dry riverbed, or whatever it was, or dry drainage, and look for footprints. So it's still kind of early. It's kind of overcast, and we're going to be walking through the woods, which are kind of dark. So there's it's not cold, but there's definitely it's not super warm either. So I wore my jacket, and I didn't bring my backpack, because I thought, we're just going to run up here and he's going to swap this card out, and then we'll be right back. And I didn't bring my jacket, or I'm sorry, I didn't bring my backpack with any of my gear in it, really. I think I had my GPS, and I had, of course, my gun and my phone. I had my camera and stuff like that. I had stuff to film with, and I had my gun and my Garmin, but I didn't have any survival gear with me. I didn't have my water. I didn't have my water filtration system. I didn't have my emergency blanket. I didn't have my fire starter. I just thought we were going to run up here, do this simple task, and then come back, then gear up to go do the other thing. So we go up and we do the the swap with the memory card and the battery on the sound recorder, which is really cool setup, by the way. You gotta check out the video where we go up there and swap it out. I believe it's day 6, the new spot, and you can kind of see the design of the long-term recorder. It's actually it's not something that basically was purchased for that. It was kind of it was MacGyvered almost, I guess you would say, kind of modified. A few different things, almost duct taped together to make a long-term recorder, and it's been going for a while, so it's a success. It definitely works. So anyway, we do that. He gets the recorder. I'm not going to say up, but he gets it functioning again, I guess. There's actually a little snafu with that. And then they're like, okay, let's walk down here and look for tracks. And at this point, I'm thinking like, wait a minute, what? Like, oh, well, maybe we're just going to walk down here because, we drove up to the spot where the recorder was. And it's, I don't know, it's a couple of miles away up the mountain. So we walk down in this valley and we're looking, and we keep walking and we keep walking, and it's starting to get warmer and warmer, and I'm wearing a jacket, and it's like 80 degrees outside at this point. Plus, we're walking through the woods, and I'm getting kind of warm, and Marshall's getting kind of warm, and I'm fat and slow. Marshall's old and slow, and the group kind of gets away from us. Like Will, Nathaniel, and Aaron, like they kind of keep going, and me and Marshall are like, like, I sure am tired, boss. Well, Marshall happens to have some water in his pack, so he sits down and he's like, we got to take a break. So I'm like, let's take a break. And in my mind, I'm kind of thinking like, we should probably walk back to the vehicles now, because we're not really prepared for this amount of exertion, and I don't have the right equipment. I don't have any water. Like, I thought this was going to be like a 10-15 minute job, and then back to the campsite to resupply and head back out. So anyway, the other guys, they just took off. Like, they're gone, which in my book is a big no-no. Like, it's okay to separate, but it has to be like a pre-planned thing. Like, okay, we're going to go over here X amount of distance, and if you guys want to go over here the X amount of distance, and then if something happens, we'll meet here, and in a backup location we'll meet here, like back in the vehicles or something. None of that was discussed. Like, they just took off. So I think Marshall was kind of like, well, we can't just, because I'm like, fuck it, let's go back to the cars. And Marshall's like, well, I think we shouldn't like run off and like not tell them where we're going. And so we kind of kept going, and of course the terrain's getting rougher, and we're going like up and down hills, and mostly up because everything is uphill in this area. And we finally run back into them, we run back into Will. Will, I think, decided to stop and wait for us, and they just kept going, the other two, which again, in my mind, I'm thinking like, this is not cool. Like, you don't leave people behind in the woods. Like, it's just not something you do if they're part of your group. You just don't do it. And we ended up meeting back up with them, and then a plan was made. Like, we were going to go back and get the cars and drive the cars back to the campsite, and then those two, Nathaniel and Aaron, were going to keep going and following that creek bed or whatever back toward the campsite. And it actually came out like near the campsite. And I don't know, I was really aggravated because I'm like, man, this was like some piss poor planning. Like, sure have been nice if I knew, what we were doing. I would have brought some water. I wouldn't have brought my jacket. I would have been more prepared. And I don't know, I'm kind of a stickler when it comes, I'm a planner. I like to plan stuff. Like, I'm going to do here, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to try and be back by this time, and if not, then this time. And then I've got like a backup plan where like, okay, if this happens, I'm going to stay here, or I'm going to, like, this is the secondary meetup place. Like, I like to do stuff like that. I don't just like to go willy nilly. and like, oh, well, they'll catch up, or we'll meet back up with them later, maybe, hopefully. Like, hopefully one of them doesn't have a heart attack and die. So anyway, Marshall, Will, and I ended up like going like uphill all the way back to the road. Oh my God, I was so mad. Beans was so mad. I got over it. I'm not as mad anymore, but at the same time, I'm like, probably not going to go in the woods with those guys again. I mean, one, part of that's on me. I need to be in better shape. I know that. I recognize it. But again, knowing that, I'm like, I don't, like those guys took off, and I'm like, I can't push myself that far. Like, I can't climb up this freaking mountain with no water and no emergency equipment. Luckily I had my Garmin, but, yeah, it was really a poor planning. A little bit, there's a little bit of blame to go around on everybody, but, you should really, when you're in a group like that, you should really, one, stick together, and two, you should have like a plan and a backup plan. Like, this is where we're going to go. If we can't get there or we get split up, this is the meeting place for the secondary objective. I don't know. Maybe it's just the soldier in me. But yeah, that was probably the worst part of the trip, was that day where we basically did the freaking baton death march there through the freaking woods. And, but you know what was cool though, is we got back to the campsite, and it kind of sucked because we get back to the campsite and I am like gassed. I'm done. I'm like, man, and I would have liked to have done some more exploring, but that like really took it out of me. Like, we had to go up some really steep hills, and I was mad. So I was pushing myself, and I had no water. And even though Marshall offered me some water, I was so aggravated. I was so spiteful that I didn't take it. I was like, nope, I'm going to drink my water out of my backpack. So anyway, we got back, and I was so gassed, and Will was like, I think it's time for a beer. And he pulled out a Stella Artois, which I have never had. I've had a lot of beer in my time, but had never tried one of those. And he gave me one of those, and I was like, holy crap, I think I have a new favorite beer. So something good did kind of come out of that day. In fact, I've got some now. But that was, man, just don't be like Beans, boys and girls. One, be in really good shape, and two, have clearly defined parameters for the missions you're about to go on. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and just say, show me on the map what we're doing and a timeline of how it's going to go. Because which I wasn't the only one that heard it that way, that we were going to go do the recorder, come back to the campsite, and then go back to the riverbed or whatever it was. So I think Marshall and maybe even Will were like, hey, that's what I heard too. But you get in the field with guys that are in better shape with you, and two, a little bit more gung ho than you are, and bad things can happen. You can wind up with hypothermia or heat stroke pretty quick. So just let this be a lesson to you guys. Make plan accordingly, ask questions, and have backup plans. But that was it. That was the worst part of the trip. The rest of the trip was amazing. I was a little sore at Aaron when we got back, but I got over it. He's a great guy. And so anyway, I think Aaron left that day? I don't know. I'm getting confused with my days. Like, it all kind of runs together. I can't remember how many days we were there. I can't remember if we were there for 2 days or 3 days. And we were sitting around a campfire that night, and this is when one of the coolest things happened of the whole trip. Is we're sitting there and we're talking, and then you hear off in a distance, you hear this like cascading, like it reminded me of an avalanche. Like, I thought, like, holy cow, is there, there's no snow up here. What am I hearing? But what we decided it was trees falling, and it was like one tree, and then there was a pause of a few seconds, and then like two more. So it sounded like 4 tree falls within, I don't know, like 10 or 15 seconds. And Will has audio of it on his YouTube page. I don't have it in front of me exactly which video it is, but it's one of the videos that we recorded there in the Selkirk Mountains over the last couple of months. It just came out like a couple of weeks ago. And so Will's got audio. I probably have audio of it, but I haven't gotten through all my audio yet. I've got so much freaking audio. I ran audio every night. I mean, this was like a 7-8 day trip. I ran audio every night. So I've got like 8 nights of audio to go through. I tried to isolate some of the audio where like when something would happen, I would try and like save it on my phone. And so far, I haven't been able to find any of it. I can find the audio files and I'll start listening to them. I don't hear anything. I'm like, well, do I need better headphones? Like, what's going on? Did it not like transfer over to my phone correctly? So anyway, I'm still digging through audio, but Will has the audio of the 4 trees falling up on his YouTube page. And yeah, it's a head scratcher. I don't know what to think of it. I mean, it could just be the tree. I mean, the trees just fell naturally, but I mean, it could have been like a domino effect or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird. There was no wind really to speak of. It wasn't raining, so the ground wasn't wet or soft. I don't know. It was actually pretty dry the whole time we were there. So it was kind of creepy. And I don't think anything else happened that night. I don't think we heard anything else. Maybe there was like a distant possible vocalization or something. But it was pretty quiet. Other than that, that was like the big thing. And then the next day, pretty much everybody left, except for me and Will. Me and Will were the last 2 standing. It was a day 7. It was, my marathon session was coming to an end. You can actually, if you watch the video, you can actually tell. Like I start the week and I'm like all like, clean and, clean shaven. And then by the end of the week, by day 7, I've got like my face is starting to break out. I'm like falling apart. And I know I smelled so bad, but, so the last night, me and Will were like, all right, let's do it. Let's have like a marathon here. And, we stayed up really late and I had a ton of firewood. So we burned I still have firewood left. But we burned so much firewood. Had such a big fire. And at one point, I think it was about 7:30 or so, we heard a knock to the east, like one crisp, clear knock, just one. And then like an hour later, on the other side of us, like almost directly west, there was another knock, which I don't remember. I don't think I heard it as clear. Will said it was definitely a knock, I think, but I didn't really hear. I was probably running my mouth. I was probably talking. But that was kind of weird how it was like, okay, there was a knock on the east side of us, and then almost an hour later, there was a knock on the complete opposite side of us, coming from the other side of the lake. And it was one of those things that make you wonder, like, was it the same thing that caused both knocks? Did it just literally like go around our campsite, skirt around us and then go down there and knock? Or is it 2 separate groups knocking back and forth? But, yeah, that was the big, like, we got knocks. And then I think it was about 11 o'clock, 11:30, something like that. We were looking in I believe it was the west sky, and I saw this light. It reminded me of a flare in its movement, because it came up over the trees like a flare would. It was really far away. Came up over the trees, and then it kind of dimmed out. But Will said it was still there, and think I saw it too, but I wasn't sure if it was the same thing. But it seemed like it was just kind of hanging there, like a star. But it came up over the trees pretty quick. Like I thought it was probably a satellite or something, and then it like dimmed out. And it was, I don't think it was a flare. It was really far away. So that was kind of weird. And it was coming from the same direction we heard the knock, but it's hard to tell, like scale and distance in the sky, but I got the impression it was really far away, like much further away than the knock was coming from. So who knows? It might have just been, it might have been some kind of weird satellite or something. Maybe it was, when it was glowing, it was thrusters were going or something, and it was changing direction. And then when it got on where it needed to be or whatever heading it needed to be on, maybe the thrusters stopped and that caused it to like dim out. But it was kind of weird. Yeah. So I think we stayed up. We stayed up to like 2 or 3 in the morning. I think I don't remember. I just I remember I think I slept pretty good. Like a lot of times when I go camping, I don't sleep good because I'm like listening. I'm like I want to hear stuff. But I think at that point I was I was exhausted and I slept pretty decent. And plus, I had that, like, I knew the next day I was going to get up and leave. And like, I was going to go stay in a hotel the next night and have like a shower and food and all that good stuff. So I knew that I was like, I was at the end, like it was over. I made it, I did the whole 7 days, and now I get to go like have a real bed and a shower. And it was so nice. It was so nice to like go and sit down in a restaurant and get a meal and like a hot meal. And it was pretty good. The end of the trip was pretty epic because it had been a long 7-day excursion out in the woods there. And I think that was other than when I was in the military, obviously we went out in the field for longer than that, but as a civilian, I'm pretty sure that's the longest time I've ever spent out in the woods with no break, no shower, no hotel, no luxuries in between. But yeah, it was a cool trip. Don't really know what I'm going to do next year. I've got some ideas. I like to do at least, one big trip a year, and then, a lot of little small local camping trips. So we'll see. I think I know what I'm going to do, but I haven't nailed it down yet. I'm going to actually probably by the end of January, I'm probably going to have it, either set in stone or really close to set in stone. I like to have my trips, like I said, I'm a planner. I like to kind of have my trips planned out, pretty far in advance. So usually if I have to buy plane tickets for something, I buy them in January if I can, or basically whenever they became available, is like as soon as they opened up the dates. So we'll see. I don't think I'm going back there next year. I think I'm going to do something different, but we'll see. I mean, maybe I'll get a chance to go back next year, but, we'll see. The only thing I have set in stone for next year is the Boreal Bigfoot Expo happening in June 10th and 11th in Fairbanks. There's going to be some really cool speakers there. I think I can announce that I'm going to be there. Rob Roy Menzies is going to be there. I believe we're going to have Fred from Subarctic Sasquatch there. Who else is going to be there? Michael Thompson, the Sasquatch Tracker, is going to be there. I got to have him on here. I keep forgetting. I don't really forget, but I'm like, I want to do a big show with him, like I want to have a big show and maybe like record it in person or something. And I'm always like, I have all these big plans, but then I never act on them. But yeah, I think we've been going for like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be like a 30-minute episode. I've been running my mouth for an hour. Good Lord. All right, guys. I wanted to hit some things before I get off here. Don't forget Christmas Day, December 25th, the Alaskan Coastal Sasquatch, or is it Bigfoot? I think it's Sasquatch. The new On the Trail of from Small Town Monsters is dropping on YouTube. The part 1 that came out, I believe it was on Thanksgiving or November. Anyway, it came out in November. I just took a peek at it today. It's got like 1 million views, so that's amazing. And you know, like I said, on the one hand, I'm like, that's awesome. They got 1 million views, and then on the other hand, I'm like, I've got like a dozen videos doing the same shit. Why don't I have 1 million views? But man, best of luck to them. They do great work. They've got some awesome freaking cinematography in that video. Some great wildlife shots. You got to check it out. And also, I have a screener copy of part 2. I don't believe it's available to the public yet. And I am probably going to sit down and watch it tonight. And do a review on it here pretty quick. I'll probably have the review out. I don't know. Do I want to drop it on Christmas Day? Maybe the day after. I don't know. But we'll get something out on it. I mean, I got to, right? I think I'm actually in the second one. I'm pretty sure I'm going to, at least for maybe a second or two, I'm going to be in part 2. What else? Head over to alasquatchpodcast.com. If you go there, you can go to the Alasquatch store. You can purchase some books that I've written. You can get them autographed. You can purchase some cool stickers that we designed, t-shirts, magnets, some other cool stuff like that, and have them sent directly to your place of residence. And what else? I think that's about it. Keep your eyes open here. We're going to have a really cool video dropping. Not this Friday, not, let's see, when we get the date up here, the 30th. So right before New Year's, I'm going to drop probably my final video from this trip. Remember, cause I mean, just because of the trip, so I get done in Washington, right? But I still got to drive home. So, I drove all through Canada, and initially I had this grand plan that I was going to stop. I was going to look up all these sighting locations along the drive and stop and check them out. And it didn't quite work out that way. And it didn't help. Part of that's my fault, because for the first like couple of days of the drive, I didn't have any, I didn't have any data. I didn't have any cell service. And, that's my fault, because I had my data roaming turned off, and I didn't know, like, I didn't know I was supposed to have it on. So like, I literally got into Canada, and I'm like, I don't have any data. Like, what? This place is so backwards. What's wrong with this place? And I had no idea it was my fault. I was like, I'm gonna have to call and order an international roaming package, and it was my fault. I didn't have my data roaming turned on. So for like the first 2 days I drove through Canada, I was like, I can't do anything but text to make phone calls. So anyway, my last video that covers some of my time in Canada is going to drop on the 30th of December. And I don't know. I know I say this about a lot of things, but you really need to check it out. Like, something really bizarre happens. I go to this place where somebody contacted me actually quite some time ago and told me about a sighting at this location. And it's a crazy sighting. And it just so happens I was driving right through there on my way home. And I thought, well, I got to check this place out. And I did. And something happened. I'm not going to tell you what, but something happened. And, the beans got scared a second time. I'll just tell you that. So anyway, guys, keep an eye out for that video. Go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, so you'll find out when it comes out. But anyway, guys, have a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Please enjoy yourself, and try and be nice to somebody. Throw a little goodwill towards somebody. A little brotherly love there, especially in the cryptid community. Be nice to somebody that maybe you're not too fond of. Anyway, guys, take care. Merry Christmas. God bless, and I'll see you back here in a little bit, and we'll talk about the Alaskan coastal Sasquatch again. you.